Buenos días, bienvenidos. Bienvenidos. Antes de comenzar este evento, es necesario que pongan atención a lo siguiente. Somos 600 personas. 600 personas en un edificio tienen que comportarse como una seda. Eso es por la seguridad de cada uno de ustedes. Les pido que miren a su derecha. Detrás de ese balcón acristalado está la salida de emergencia, que es la que se va a usar junto con la salida principal en caso de cualquier emergencia. ¿Ya? Todos han visto esa salida, están todos avisados. Y todos los vamos a pasar espectacularmente hoy. Venimos a ver a Patti Smith. Pero déjenme decirle que Patti Smith no es una leyenda, no. Son varias leyendas tejidas en una sola mujer. Fue una niña criada por una madre testigo de Jehová en un hogar rural de Nueva Jersey. Siguió obedientemente esa enseñanza hasta los 12 años. A esa edad le dieron permiso para escoger su propia religión. Hizo justamente eso. Escogió su propia y única religión sin otra iglesia más que ella misma. Fue la trabajadora en una fábrica en Filadelfia. Quedó cesante cuando un astillero cerró y arrastró la fábrica a la quiebra. Esa joven decidió viajar a Nueva York a buscar trabajo. Y encontró trabajo en una librería, como muchos de nuestros estudiantes. Y justo Robert Mapplethorpe trabajaba en la misma librería. En realidad, en otro local de la misma cadena de librerías. Pero un día él entró a su tienda y compró el collar persa que ella deseaba por meses. Y ella lo miró a los ojos y le hizo jurar que no se lo regalaría a ninguna otra. Así empezó todo entre ellos. Ella es la escolar que a los 12 años va de paseo a un museo de arte y queda cruzada por Picasso y por Modigliani, sobre todo Modigliani. En el trabajo de este pintor ve la figura flaca y alta y el cuello largo que le costaba tanto aceptar en su propia imagen. Decide entonces ser artista. Es la lectora precoz que descubre a Rimbaud a los 14. No hay mejor edad para descubrir al poeta adolescente, como cuando justamente se es un adolescente. Solo entonces se puede entender eso del poeta, mitad fuego, mitad vidente. Patti Smith vio la foto de Rimbaud y lo amó, en parte por la potencia enigmática de sus poemas, como también porque tenía la misma pinta que Bob Dylan. Lenny Kaye toca su guitarra y estará hoy día con nosotros también. Lenny Kaye toca su guitarra y al frente recita sus poemas Patti Smith. Lenny, ¿puedes hacer un choque de autos con tu guitarra? Y al poco tiempo después pasó de hacer sus poemas a canciones y el álbum que todos conocemos, Horses, que es un hito para el punk y décadas después salpica hasta el grunge. Pero esa Patti Smith es la misma niña enferma que en cama por meses solo se calmaba escuchando ópera. Patti Smith es autora de 3 memorias. 3 de ellas han sido publicadas. Éramos unos chicos, El tren M, El año del mono. No hay reseña que no destaque su prosa fluida y elegante. En ella también hay una obsesiva cazadora de pequeños objetos cotidianos con su Polaroid. Desde las pantuflas del Papa, un traje de Joseph Beuys y una serie de camas y camas y camas, porque en todas sus vidas las camas han sido un motivo al que regresan el canto, la escritura y la fotografía. En ellas soñamos, somos vulnerables, morimos en las camas, amamos, nos reproducimos en las camas. Patti Smith no es una leyenda, sino un tejido de varias vidas en un solo mito. La chica del sur de Jersey, la niña de campo, que también es una intelectual pública, sino que lo diga George Bush después de la invasión de Irak. Es la niña de campo que busca pastorear nuevas audiencias hacia la lectura y a la vez una mente inquieta que no teme enhebrar el rock con la erudición, pasando de un homenaje a Amy Winehouse, una canción de cumpleaños a Johnny Depp, a una canción sobre el escritor Bulgakov o Nikolai Gogol, todo en un mismo álbum. Entonces, quiero llamar al escenario con un aplauso a Patti Smith. Patti Smith, welcome to Chile.
Hello, everybody. So happy to be in Chile. It's we love you too.
Look, I've got a whole bunch of gifts for you. They love you. They truly do. So, Patti, can we start from the present to the past? I'd like to know if you're working on something in a creative project right now. Are you working on something?
I'm always working on something, but actually I'm always working on 2 or 3 things. So I'm doing an album of improvised poetry with Soundwalk Collective on subjects such as Chernobyl, Medea, many interesting improvised poems. I'm writing another book, which is basically fiction, but centered on our environment and climate change. And I'm writing sort of a companion book to Just Kids, another book that is focused perhaps a lot on music, a lot on creativity, and also my late husband, touring. So a similar book to Just Kids, only different. So that's what I'm working on.
Okay, so you're working on 3 projects, and you've always developed creative projects in many fields. Is there a specific artistic expression that you've explored that you find particularly challenging?
I think writing poetry is the most challenging of all the arts. And also writing song lyrics are, for me, is challenging. But the one consistent thing I've done in my life since a little girl is to write. So I basically think of myself as a writer.
And why do you find particularly challenging poetry? I ask you because I know that in the audience there are many poets.
Well, I think that to have the vocation of being a poet is one of the most sacred of the arts, but it's also the most difficult to find an audience, to receive any kind of recognition. Many great poets lived in poverty, and it's the most sacrificial, I think, of all the arts.
And has your craft changed due to great events in your life? For example, death of loved ones or becoming a mother, for example? Have those events changed your craft?
Well, everything, I don't think of it as changing, but evolving. Mm-hmm. It's more about process. When I left public life to marry and had children, I worked every day. I might have worked harder, actually, because I only had a few hours of freedom where I wasn't taking care of my family. So those 3 hours I worked every single day very diligently, like Roberto Bolaño calls the daily practice. So I really developed a daily practice in those days. And I think really the one beautiful thing about the aging process is if you stay healthy, you evolve, you get better. And so my facility as a writer has grown.
Okay. Well, now you mentioned your family, and I think of your kids. And I cannot help but remember that in many interviews, you've said that in a visit to a museum, you realized that you wanted to be an artist. I think that you were 12. When was it that you understood that your career would be always linked not to just art, but to performative art?
Well, I never thought about performing, except when I was 7 or 8, I dreamed of being an opera singer. I wanted to sing Puccini, but I didn't have any real gift. It was just a dream. But I never, beyond that, thought about performing. When I was young, I read Little Women, and in it, the heroine is named Jo, and she was very much like me, very boyish, very free, and she was a writer, and I decided to be a writer. And then when I was about 11, I saw art for the first time in person, and when I saw Picasso's and saw all, art in person, I was so moved, I vowed that I would be an artist. But to me, an artist encompasses many things, whether it's photography, writing, painting. But I still never dreamed of being a performer. I started performing first with Lenny Kaye, performing poetry with a little bit of music. It's just that in performing poetry, I was so restless and energetic that I would get a bit bored. So it just evolved from reading and improvising poetry to playing 3 chords, playing rock chords, but having a little piano. We evolved organically as a rock and roll band, but it was never planned, never dreamed of. But I will say that my other dream was to see the world, and thanks to performing in a rock and roll band, I got to see the world.
Well, that's great. Well, I can see you.
And now I'm seeing you.
I can see you as a kid wanting to sing Puccini.
I was so skinny. I was like tall, skinny with pigtails, like with my hair like this, I don't know what you're calling them, but long pigtails like this, thinking, I was going to sing visita, I was going to do big arias, and my mother went, maybe think of a different job.
But isn't that a time in which you spent some time in bed because you were sick, and your mother went and bought some very expensive opera albums for you?
Well, my family was quite poor, and I was very sickly. I had tuberculosis, and I was cured of that, and then pneumonia, and then scarlet fever. And each time the doctor would say, she's not going to make it, but I was like, no problem. But then I got influenza, and I wasn't getting better.
Oh, the Spanish.
And it wasn't Spanish. It was the Asiatic flu in America, and it killed many children. And my mother was so desperate because I wouldn't get better, and she knew I loved Puccini. She took the food money for a week, and she bought a box set of Madame Butterfly with the libretto and brought it to me, and she put it in bed with me, and she said, I couldn't hear it till I got better. And it I was just laying there with these records and using all my might, all my prayers, all of my inner strength to get better, and I did. And but I think my family was a little hungry that week.
So it's a nice mixture because you seem to be somebody who is as rebellious as inclined to classical art at the same time with no contradictions.
Well, I like to be free. I mean, sometimes people would say, "Oh, you're a punk rocker, and yet you like opera, and you have a song that's popular," or and I just say, "Fuck you." It's just like basically for me, punk rock was freedom. It didn't have any rules for me. It's just like religion, everything. I like to live. Obviously, we have certain rules we have to live by to survive social order. But when it comes to the arts, I want to be free. I don't want to be called a female artist or a punk artist. I'm a worker. I do my work, and I don't like labels, and I'm not going to apologize for anything.
Okay.
See, I'm still coughing.
There's a lesson for us. So we talked about
Sorry. Thank you.
We've talked about your visit to the museum as a young girl, the opera, but we've all also read about your time in the Chelsea Hotel in New York. We thoroughly have enjoyed your adventures with Robert Mapplethorpe and your other friends. Your other friends, for example, Gregory Corso, Ginsberg, Burroughs. But I've always wondered what aspect of these experiences has had a deeper effect in your education as an artist.
Well, I was very lucky to be in the Chelsea Hotel at that time. I went there with Robert in 1969 and made many beautiful friends who were my teachers and then my friends, all the people that you mentioned. And from Robert, the enduring lesson I got from Robert is when I met him, I had a lot of bravado, but I didn't have a complete belief in myself as an artist. Robert completely believed in himself and really instilled in me a confidence that has never gone away. Whenever I feel my confidence slipping, I hear Robert in my ear. He never let me lose my confidence. And from William Burroughs, I received a beautiful lesson. I asked William if he had advice for me when I was quite young, and he said, "Keep your name clean," or "Keep your name clean." He said, "Do not be ashamed of your beliefs and do your work that is best for the work." There is compromise in life. Some compromises are positive because they promote better communication or unity, but compromise within the work itself, he said, don't do that because you will regret it. So I've done my best to keep my name clean. And for Allen Ginsberg, he taught me the importance of being an activist as well as an artist. And because an activist is not a role that is especially important for artists, every human being should be an activist of some sort, whether you're protecting the environment, your children, social justice. It is a human right and a human responsibility. So I have to say, it's very sad for me that these three men I've mentioned are all dead, but they are alive within me. I think of them almost daily. In fact, Lenny and I were looking at pictures of me and William this morning, and so they are always with me, and the things that they taught me have never gone away. I mean, when we learn beautiful things or important things, we don't learn them unless we live them. So if we get teachings that can be of life importance, then it's important to live by them.
Okay, great. I was thinking of the book. I was thinking of the book Just Kids. And you know, one of the easiest critiques, perhaps the most stingiest of the critiques, is that, oh no, she's just name dropping. But you're actually describing a whole milieu, and at the time, not everyone there was really famous.
No, culture was different in the 60s and 70s. All of the people that I talk about in my book were my friends. Sam Shepard and Allen Ginsberg and Burroughs and Robert. And I mean, of course, somebody like Janis Joplin was very well known, but we all lived at the Chelsea. We were all, you know, all like hippies. We all were against the Vietnam War. We were for civil rights. And the culture of celebrity was not really around rock and roll, because people, you know, the 60s artists were looked upon as marginal, as mavericks, anti-government. So we were all similar. And, you know, they weren't like, we didn't have cell phones and selfies and credit cards and, you know, and rock stars, you know, people getting autographs. We all just lived communally. So people have to understand the culture and the time that the book was written. Robert was not well known. I was working in a bookstore. You know, people were still learning and struggling. And so they have to look at the time and the context. But all I can say is, when people tell me that, I say, okay, if it's wrong to name drop your own friends and loved ones, you know, what can I tell you? You know, but they were my friends. I never spoke of anyone in the book that was well known except as my friend. So.
And you just mentioned Sam Shepard. And isn't he a key figure on your latest memoir in the Year of the Monkey?
Well, the last book, M Train, was dedicated to Sam, and Sam was the cowpoke writer in the book. So Sam reoccurs in M Train as a more fictional character, but in Year of the Monkey, he, sadly, Sam developed adult ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a fatal muscular disease. And so the last 2 years of his life, I spent a lot of time with him as he had to go through the various stages of his disease to help him realize his books. So Sam is a real person in the book, and sadly, after I finished the book, he died. And but he's very much entwined. His bravery, his stoicness, and his desire to keep working. And it's true of all my friends. We're all workers. All of my friends are workers. That's what I like to do. I like to work. And Sam, even at the worst of his affliction, was working.
Wow. And would you care to read us a passage of that book?
Sure, I can read. Well, there's many passages I could read, but I'm going to read you my favorite passage. It's a passage that I wrote on the inauguration day in my country, when that man was made president of the United States. Yes, I can't even say his name, so I am with you. But I wrote it that night. It's a different kind of passage than the rest of the book, but it's probably the most emotional. I dreamed of a long train of migrants walking from one end of the earth to another, far beyond the ruins of what had once been home. They walk through deserts and barren plains and straggling wetlands where wide ribbons of inedible algae, brighter than the Persian sky, wrapped around their ankles. They walk dragging their banners behind, clothed in the fabric of lamentations, seeking the extended hand of humankind, shelter where none was offered. All the homes were shut, the air within was dry. All doors, windows, and wells were hermetically sealed, as if in anticipation of their coming. All doors were closed. And I dreamed that all the hardships of the migrants were viewed on global screens, personal tablets, and two-way wristwatches, becoming a popular form of reality-based entertainment. All watch dispassionately as they tread unforgiving ground, hope bleeding into hopelessness. Yet art flourished. Musicians rose from their torpor, composing mesmerizing works of symphonic suffering. Sculpture sprang as if from the covered ground. Muscular dancers depicted the torments of the exiled, rushing the length of great stages as if overcome by nomadic futility. All watched, riveted, even as the world in its dependable folly kept spinning. And I dreamed the monkey leapt upon it, this mirror ball of confusion, and broke into dancing. And in my dream it was pouring, as if with a heartbroken vengeance. Yet I went without a raincoat all the way to Times Square. People were gathering before a mammoth screen, watching the inauguration. And a young boy, the very same who had alerted the populace that the emperor had no clothes, cried, "Look, he's back again. You let him out of the bag." The festivities were followed by a new installment of a reenactment of the trials of the migrants. Dancers writhed in agony as barbs of compassion pricked their feet. Wooden boats streaked in gold lay abandoned in the shallow waters. The onlookers wrung their hands in sympathetic fury, yet this was nothing to those walking the earth, the migrants, the circumference killers, tracing words in the wind-swept sand. Portray us, if you must, but we are the living thorns, the pierced and the piercing. And I awoke, and what was done was done. The inauguration was complete. The human chain was in motion, and their voices played in the air like a cloud of ravaging insects. One cannot approximate truth, add nor take away, for there is no one on earth like the true shepherd, and there is nothing in heaven like the suffering of real life. Thank you. So
Oh my God, Patti Smith.
I just
I really can't believe how lucky we are to listen to you live. No, it's honestly.
I just
you blew
wanted
us off.
thank you. I just wanted to say that what drove me to write that is that in the time of suffering, people, wish for artists to show the suffering, to speak of it in their work, in their music, in their art. And this is very beautiful, but in these times where there is so much global suffering, art is not enough. The people, the students, the young, they are the ones who are going to make change. God bless our artists, but really, I'm an artist myself, but I recognize who is going to make change is our young. Our girls like Greta Thunberg, are all the millions marching for climate change, as the students in your own country, as the people who rise up. And somehow, we must all unify. My dream is that every student in the world would unify, that they would not just one country, but every country in the world and say, we have enough. We want to save our planet. We want to save the environment. We want social justice globally for all people.
You've said it. We are the thorns. That's beautiful. And, well, I can't believe that that's prose. Listening to that, I can hear the line breaks. I can hear the pentameter, your breathing, the alliteration, how the line flows. I can't believe that's not poetry.
Well, it has a poetic element, but, sometimes I was thinking about the writer Sebald, who when he was young wrote exquisite poetry, but when he got older, his poetry found its way within his work. And look at Roberto Bolaño. Sometimes when I'm reading 266, which I've read like 4 times, some of it, again, like you said, seems like I'm reading poetry. But the poet is always a poet, no matter what he's doing. And some of the poetry is going to seep through his other works, no matter what he does.
I presented you in Spanish, not as a legend, but as many legends weaved into one woman. But I think I was wrong. I think I should have said that you're a poet that has found many outlets for her poetry, in songs, performances, in memoir, photography. Do you think that that is a more accurate description of you, the poet? Do you go back and stand on poetry in every creative project that you developed?
I do, but the vocation of the poet is so sacred. I feel like only God can tell you are a poet. So I like to say I'm a worker. I'm a worker. That's what I do. I do my work.
And don't let them tell you that to write poetry is nothing. It's hard work, of course,
Yes,
isn't
it is.
There's a period in your life in which you confront the death of many loved ones in a very short period of time. Has death pushed you towards writing memoirs?
Actually, it was life that pushed me, because I would have never written Just Kids, except the last day of his life, Robert Mapplethorpe asked me to write it. I had never written a memoir. I wrote mostly fairy tales and stories and poetry. Excuse me. But the day before he died, he asked me to write our story, because only I knew him when we were young. We were poor. We didn't know anyone. No one knew us. And I saw the evolution of his work. I was very privileged to see how he evolved as an artist, also his nature, how he had to struggle with his inner nature. and how that blossomed. And that is how I started writing memoirs, really through Robert. And now but I always wanted to write more autobiographical fiction like Jean Genet. That is my favorite genre, where it's semi-autobiographical, but also has to do with visions and dreams and daydreams and fictional characters. And so The Year of the Monkey is closest to that genre, and that's the genre I really want to work on, like the Thieves' Journal. That for me is a template for the kind of writing I want to do. Again, Genet, a poet who infuses within the Thieves' Journal sexual fantasy, his youth, evolution, poetry, a hope for the future, all in one book. And that's the kind of book I'd like to write.
Well, I read in a couple of reviews confusion from part of the reviewers, and they mentioned the dreams. And then I thought, well, that's a very good sign, because they were expecting something else. And dreams are so difficult to manage, and it's a difficult subject.
Well, in Year of the Monkey, the poor reader doesn't only have dreams to worry about, but there's waking dreams, sleeping dreams, and then fictional characters, and of course, hard reality. But that's the way life is. I mean, I go through life, I'm daydreaming all the time while I'm also going through real life. So to me, there is no one particular reality. There's parallel realities. Even without drugs.
Yeah. In Bana, your 2012 album, you make references to Bulgakov, Gogol, and if I'm not mistaken, to Piero della Francesca. How do you get away with it? How do you manage to be so learned and not sound pompous?
But it's just how I operate. You know, when you think of like our second album in '76, Radio Ethiopia, in Radio Ethiopia, I'm speaking of the famine in Ethiopia, the last years of Arthur Rimbaud, the death of Arthur Rimbaud, and the work of the sculptor Constantine Brancusi, all in one improvisation. So it's just, my mind finds correspondences, and you know, it's also how I live. You know, I'm always reading, I always have a book with me, and I also want to share the things that I learn and read about to other people. You know, that to me is part of the beauty of doing work, is not only presenting my own ideas and my own thoughts, but also impressions of all the canon, the great canon of art and literature and music that we are privy to have. I mean, there's a lot, for instance, in Year of the Monkey, the Ghent altarpiece is very popular in that book. And I was laughing because I thought, I might be the first person that's talking about R&B songs in the Ghent altarpiece in the same paragraph. So,
well, you have that virtue in which you take this high-end knowledge or high culture, but you make it seem as if it was available for everyone. Do you think that has...
It is. I mean, I was a poor student. I didn't have a good... I went to a teacher's college for a year or so and then left. I was never excelled, but I always read since I was very small. And I think that, you know, art, we all have creative impulses, and we all respond to different things, whether it's a rock and roll song or Coltrane or prayer, we respond. And, you know, I mean, I was 11 years old when I fell in love with Picasso, but 16 or 17 when I fell in love with the Rolling Stones. It's the same girl. But I think when artists create, they don't create for an elite group of people. I mean, think about in Beethoven's time, or operas in Mozart's time, the people were crazy. They would bring food. They'd come to a Mozart opera, bring in like sandwiches and like throwing bottles, and they were crazy. It was like rock concerts.
Yeah, that's true for Shakespeare also, isn't it?
Yeah, or Shakespeare. I mean, and they were crazy. Beethoven would have concerts 12 hours long. People would bring pillows and covers, and they would bring they would make a fire and be cooking. Culture is for everyone.
You are a curious reader. You explore outside of the English language. You reach to a repertoire of authors that is beyond United States. Your enthusiasm for Bolaño, for example, that we share. But we are generally surprised by your comments, for example, on Space Invaders, Nonas Fernandez book.
It's awesome.
That really surprised us.
It's actually, I was signing Year of the Monkey in a New York bookstore, and then I was looking around for something to read, and I saw this little book, Space Invaders by Nona Fernandez, and I thought, wow, what a cool title. I didn't know her. I didn't know anything. It just...
Well, she might be here. I don't know.
Wow. Is she here?
They're pointing towards her.
Is she here? Oh, my God. Come here. Is she
That's
really
her.
here?
That's her.
Where?
Hello, Nona.
I can't.
There.
Come say hello to me. Come, please.
This wasn't planned. Great. Dale un beso nomás.
So I bought this little book. This little book is a jewel. It really almost makes me cry. It's beautiful. And also the translator, Natasha Weimar, is Bolaño's translator. She's a beautiful woman. And I fell in love with this book so much that I went back and bought like 5 copies, and I gave one to Lenny Kay. And on the plane, Lenny read it on the plane, and he was beguiled.
Wow.
So we're just, thank you for writing it, and we have to get all your books translated so I can read them. That was exciting.
It is truly exciting, and we really thank you, because it's not that often that authors from the English-speaking world take time to not only to browse through books, but to read thoroughly and express their enthusiasm.
Well, I mostly read books in translation. I actually think that's part of my writing style, because I don't write like many American writers. I really write as if I'm translated from another language. I can't explain it, but that's basically what I read, is books in translation. And so I just find that aesthetically, that's what I gravitate toward. And so anyway, that was so exciting.
Well, your sounds, your alliteration in your writing, it sounds so far away from being bookish, even though you read a lot. sounds so far away from being bookish. It seems like your original language from which you are translating is your own body. That's what we hear.
Thank you. Well, you know, I write for the people. I mean, when I'm writing poetry, I admit some of my poetry is difficult, very hard to translate, and sometimes hard to decode. But when I'm writing my books, I want, especially like You're the Monkey, it's an invitation for people to hang out with me. You know, sit in a cafe, eat what I'm eating black beans and, you know, drinking black coffee and then having an adventure. I want the reader to be with me. And that's another thing that Soñé did in Thieves' Journal. He's speaking to the reader. And that's often the case in the books that I like.
Okay.
So maybe that has something to do with it.
So, well,
Also, I don't have a very big vocabulary.
No, but come on, come on. You're really masterful. So I really wish that there are more people like you in America, readers who enjoy reading books in translation from the end of the world.
Well, I'm always, like on my Instagram or, for instance, I think it was, I don't know which, I mean a couple of different English newspapers, big English newspapers. They were calling me from London, asking me of my favorite book of the year. And so I told them Space Invaders. So I want people to learn, you know, I put it on my Instagram, I put all the books. I read a book, Kingdom Cons by Herrera, a Mexican writer, Cesar Ayres, the Argentinian writer. I reviewed his book in the New York Times. I'm a big fan of his, so I want people to read these books, so I do my best to share them.
That's great. Look, you've picked, more than once, you've picked up the glove that political contingency throws in your way. Have you ever lent your voice to a cause that would later turn out to be a mistake?
No, I don't think so.
Always spot on.
Because I really think about things. You know, I'm asked to do things, benefits or speak for people, but I do it in many different ways. Sometimes very aggressively, sometimes financially, sometimes marching, but I try to choose my causes as wisely as when I'm doing my work, because it's all an extension of your core beliefs. So I can't say that I regret anything that I've stood for.
Oh, it's nice to say that, because you've taken lots of risks.
Well, that's part of the beauty of life. It would be really boring not to have any risks.
Of course. Well, I remember some years ago when Nicanor Parra received the Cervantes Prize. I saw you there in the ceremony and afterwards in a small little concert. I believe that you met there the poet Raúl Zurita.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And I was there with Ignacia Echeverra, and he introduced me to the work of Parra, and I was very happy to be at the ceremony, sing a little song. Actually, Lenny and I are going to do that same little song we did for Parra at the ceremony, so, you know.
Oh, that's great.
We'll do it today.
That's great. You know, Raúl wanted to be here, but he has just had open heart surgery. But
he will get better. He has a strong heart.
Oh, very strong. And speaking about open heart, he devised this gift for you. This is a manuscript of one of his poems, a manuscript that was torn up and later pieced back together.
Wow.
Just like the process that is happening now in our country. This is for
Thank
you.
you. What an honor.
Well, we know that you've been following the news and the contingent news here of Chile, and just as we have been following the impeachment inquiry of that man.
Thank you.
And once again, we find ourselves in a kind of similar tough spot as society, as as countries. We are confronting a time in which language has been broken by deceit, and yet people have risen and tried to come up with new vocabulary of hope and redistribution of power and justice, etc. Do you find in these times inspiration for your writing and your music, or is it the period when you're just taking the blow first?
No, I mean, first of all, I made a vow a long time ago that no matter what is happening in the world, I have the right to experience joy, to be human, to do my work. I mean, I lost my husband, my brother, Robert, my pianist, my parents in a very short time, but still, I have children, I have my work, I have so much enthusiasm for possibilities, and I'm not going to let, no matter what is happening around me, dictate who I am and dictate whether I wake up depressed every day. I'm not going to do it. Sometimes it's a battle when I see in my own country what the administration is doing to our environment, what they are doing, to the morale of our people, what they are doing with our relationships with other countries. Our present president, his esteem for dictators and esteem for bullies and his esteem for men like him. It's a terrible thing to wake up to every day, but it's not who I am. And I'm not going to roll over or, feel like helpless every day. If I can't change what they're doing there, I can still radiate as much strength as possible and help others. And right now, we are all in a similar place. I was just in Brazil, and look what is happening. Look at the president they have. Look what is happening to the rainforest. Look what is happening because of the greed for oil and gold, what is happening to our indigenous people, and what is happening to our Palestinian friends, or what's happening all over the world, our Turkish brothers and sisters, because we have people in power, in governmental power, who lack empathy, lack concern for our environment, and we as a people globally have to take a stand, because it's getting worse. In my whole life, I have never seen the world in a worse place. I was born right after World War II, one of the worst times in the world, after they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I was born, and hopefully born into a new world where people are going to learn from mistakes. But right now, we are in the worst time I've ever seen. But doesn't mean that we have to feel helpless, that downtrodden, because we are human and we are free and we have free minds, and we have to stay healthy and strong and be ready to rise up at the drop of a hat. So God bless all the students, and God bless the people who are, God bless the people who have been injured.
And I believe that the hat has dropped. So, Patti, do you think that you can perform a song for us?
Yes, okay. I have to get this.
No, there's another microphone there. Don't worry. Okay, so Lenny Kaye is joining us on the stage. There's something to be said about Patti Smith and keeping her friends, because she's been performing with Lenny Kaye for many years. Great artistic couple.
Hello, Lenny. So, like I said, we're going to do this little song, sort of a benediction, and it's for everyone, but I like to dedicate it to Nona. It was so great to meet her. I was a wing in heaven blue, and on the ocean soared in the rain, and I was free. I needed nobody. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I was a pawn, couldn't make a move, couldn't go nowhere, no future at all. Yet I was free. I needed nobody. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And if there's one thing could do for you, you'd be a wing in heaven blue. I was a vision in another eye, and I saw nothing, no future at all. Yet I was free. I needed nobody. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And if there's one thing could do for you, you'd be a wing in heaven blue. And if there's one thing could do for you, you'd be a wing in heaven blue. Thank you. So, thank you. So we'd like to do one more song. And so this is dedicated to the people and the spirit of the people. It's dedicated to you all. In my dreaming, well, of an aspect bright and fair, and my sleeping, it was broken, but my dream, it lingered near, in the form of shining valleys, oh, where the pure air rarefied, and my senses are newly opened, I awaken into the cry that the people have the power to redeem the work of fools upon the Greek. The basest shower is decreed. The people rule. My people have the power. Believe it. People have the power. Make it so. People have the power. Have the power. Whoa. Vengeful aspects became suspect and bending low as if to hear, and the armies ceased advancing because the people had their ear. And the shepherds and the soldiers, well, they lay beneath the stars, exchanging visions, laying arms to waste in the dust, in the form of shining valleys, where the pure air rarefied, and my senses are newly opened. To the cry. People have the power. Believe it. People have the power. Make it so. People have the power. People have the power. Where there were deserts, I saw fountains, and like cream, the waters rise, and we stroll there together. We none to laugh or criticize. Well, then the leopard and the lamb lay together, are truly bound. Well, I was hoping, in my hoping, to recall what I found. I was dreaming, in my dreaming, God knows, a pure view. As I surrender into my sleeping, I commit my dream to you. People have the power to dream. People have the power to vote. People have the power to strike. People have the power to love. The power to dream, to tonight.